8th meeting of the Rotary Club at Southjax-WestjaxRotaryClubs. It's great to see so many friends with us here today on Zoom and live. And I hope everyone had a relaxing and patriotic Memorial Day weekend. I'm glad to see that you guys remembered to show up today. Hopefully there weren't too many of you who showed up last week. Tamara, oh, what? I know. Right. Crystal Braun, would you like to do our pledge and prayer?
Hello.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So will you join me? Let us pray silently together, each of us according to our individual beliefs. Let us offer thanks for our food, blessings for one another, and for absent friends. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us give gratitude for our opportunity to serve Rotary and others. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. Bless this food to nourish our body and us to your service. Amen.
Amen. Christy, it's showtime. Family Rotary.
We're catching up from a couple weeks, so bear with me. Judge and past President Harvey Schlesinger had a birthday on June 4th, and past President and past District Governor Mike Dara and past President Jay Plotkin both have birthdays today, so happy birthday. Charlie Kofer celebrated 4 years with Rotary on June 6th, and he and his wife Emily also celebrated 47 years of marriage on June 1st. And again, Judge Harvey Schlesinger and his wife Lois also celebrated 59 years of marriage on June 2nd, and past President Ted Johnson and his wife Tila celebrated 11 years on June 5th.
That's a lot. Happy birthday. All right, Mike, birthday boy, come on up. I think you've got something you need to present. Look.
So I have an official job today that I decided to give myself for my birthday. First off, can you all on Zoom hear okay? Don't know if we need to move the mic. Tell us if we need to move it closer. We're okay?
Yeah, okay.
B4 gave me a great idea the other day. And when I was thinking of what I wanted for my birthday, I realized there were a lot of things. You know, we talk about world hunger, solving world hunger, world peace. And the cool thing is, Rotary's actually working on that. And I thought, if I want to give myself something, I'm going to give a Paul Harris Fellowship, which does all those things. And I'm going to give it to somebody who has done a whole lot. Rotary about 10 years ago used to do, and for a long time did, group study exchanges of young professionals who came over to our country, learned a lot about us, and we did exchanges with Colombia during the drug wars, with India, Pakistan, I mean, all sorts of folks. These folks stayed in my home. South Africa, 1 year after apartheid ended. We've got two of the folks, the black guys, who were guerrillas prior to 1 year ago, and now we're officers in companies, and one of them was a judge. The tremendous opportunities that I got through Rotary. Well, when that went away, because we started going more into grants, there's another organization I found that just was doing tremendous stuff. Global Jacks does these sorts of exchanges. We've had Russians, Ukrainians, what else have we had? And there's a woman that has been staying with Global Jacks and joined Rotary a few years ago, staying with Global Jacks throughout some really tough times with all the travel being cut back. Got a job at a more peaceful place about a year and a half ago in the ethics office in the city of Jacksonville. Got a part-time job so that she could help out in an area anyway. So I would like to give my Paul Harris Fellowship to a woman who greatly deserves it, Andrea Myers. Could you come up and give it? And I'll say one last thing for Andrea. When she came in, she did a great job. I was doing all sorts of stuff. I was in Toronto on the main stage when we were at the convention. And I even mentioned her and said, now I'm older, but I do work with a 30-year-old woman who constantly comes up to me very respectfully and says, Mike, I don't think I would have said that. And it helps me realize I gotta stay relevant. We all need to stay relevant. Rotary needs to stay relevant. So Andrea Myers, thank you for all you have done.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's official, Barry. We got somebody here to give you a run for your money, I think. Yay. I was like, 90 seconds, Mike. Great. Andrea, congratulations. Yeah, whatever. I know. So, Julie Kalinsky, would you like to give us a CIS update? Come on up.
It's hard to follow that. I actually had an opportunity about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago to speak at an event, a virtual event with about 56, how many countries were there? A lot. Just about volunteerism over COVID and how everybody dealt with it and what were the different tactics they use, and it was amazing. So
You want to watch?
great experience, and I think we got a lot out of it. CIS update. So we are on the tail end of our fundraising for communities and schools to stuff their backpacks for back to school. We're going to be doing an in-person event next Wednesday. It's going to start around 4:30, 5 o'clock. All the details are on DAC TV, so if you don't mind RSVPing, if you're going to join us, kids are welcome, so please RSVP for all the members of your family that'll be joining us on this fun in-person service event. We will probably wrap up the fundraising by Friday because we want to go ahead and go shopping with some of the cash that we're getting and get everything ready for us to actually do the backpack stuffing. So if you have any questions, reach out to me via email and please RSVP.
Ask Jay and make sure you covered it.
Jay?
I think you got it covered. Thanks to everyone for your support.
Thank you. All right, Bill Langley, where are you? Come on up, give us a membership moment.
Thank you, President Tom. I just want to let you know we're continuing our membership drive until the end of this month. The cards are on your table, so take a few minutes, sit down, and think of the folks that you would like to see sitting next to you at lunch or on Zoom with you. Think about folks that go to your church, your business colleagues, folks around the community, people you play tennis with or sports with. So those are the folks that make great Rotarians. So just submit those, leave them on your table, or actually give them to Patty on your way out each meeting. And we look forward to beginning a new Rotary year in July. Can I go ahead and do visitors and guests, since I get to do that next anyway?
Yeah.
Mike, I'm giving you the 2-minute warning. Going into our visitors and guests, returning with us again, Steve Madden brought Grace De La Rosa, who is sitting at our table today. We're welcome to have Grace back. And past President Gary Wilkinson, you have a guest today.
I do. I am pleased to introduce Brendan Bledsoe, who's a former club. Welcoming him back. He is in real estate presently with Keller Williams. So very glad to have him back.
Welcome. Laurie Whitler, you have a couple of guests here today.
Yes, I do. First, I have with me Sheila Presley. She's JEA's Chief Customer Officer. Hello, everybody. I have Jody Brooks. She's JEA's Chief Administrator Officer.
Do we have any guests on Zoom today? None. Did we miss any guests or visiting Rotarians? Seeing none again. Maestro Mike. We here in Rotary welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our head of the shoulders, sunshine over the rain.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Mike.
We got that part.
Right, I know. Laurie Whitmer, would you please come introduce our speaker today? Come on up.
So it's with great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who's going to talk to us about our community-owned utility, JEA. He has more than 25 years in non-for-profit utility sector. Prior to coming to JEA, he was CEO of Stowe Utility Groups in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Prior to the utility group, spent more than a decade at Huntsville Utilities. There, he served as VP of Operations and COO before becoming President and CEO of Huntsville. Under his leadership, the utility grew to become the 15th largest public gas system in the country, the 20th largest public electric system in the country, and one of the largest water systems in the Southeast. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Jay's Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Jay Stowe.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to be in person. We've started doing this, but haven't really spoken in front of a group in a long time. So I might be a little bit nervous, but I think we can kind of work through that. I'm going to start I'm going to not change what I'm going to say based on these questions, but I got just a handful of questions. Is anybody with the press here? Okay. I'm okay with that. That's all good. What about elected officials?
Judges.
Yeah. I have a story about getting fingerprinted earlier today. I'll tell you later. That's not a good joke for JEA, is it? I get the same thing. I wouldn't have said that. Anybody, and I know some of you work at JEA. Does anybody else work at JEA or used to work at JEA? Okay. I know there's somebody on Zoom too. And then how many of you are customers of JEA? It's my favorite one. So I'm going to start a little bit about what JEA is and what JEA is not right now. Some of it's really important. JEA is not for sale. Thank you. We are a community asset. We're not in a death spiral. We're working to serve you, the customers, every day. And I don't know anything about the grand jury investigation, and if you do, you probably shouldn't either. So I can't answer any questions about that. We've gone through a little bit of some crazy times, but we're dedicated and focused on moving forward. JEA, sometimes people lose track of this, the size and scope of JEA. We're the 8th largest public power utility in the country, one of the largest water and wastewater systems in the country. And because of the combination of all those utilities, we may be in the top 4 or 5, just size-wise, for public, municipally owned utilities in the country. We serve Northeast Florida, so outside of not just Jacksonville, but outside of Jacksonville, with electric water, wastewater, reuse water, chilled water. We have some natural gas sales, and we have some access to dark fiber. So it's a broad area of activity that we're involved in. We're working to develop a strategic plan right now, which I know everybody is pretty excited about the idea of a utility strategic plan. But we're trying to remain focused and simplify what we do so that we can keep it in mind all the time. We have strategy, some focus areas that we're looking at. We're building an unbeatable team that is focused on our employees to make the best employees that we can have to serve the community, earn customer loyalty by doing what's best for our customers every day, and then delivering business excellence, which in large part is being easier to do business with. We got to be effective, efficient in our jobs, but we need to be a little bit easier to do business with. We're doing this with three of our values in mind: safety, integrity, respect. The idea of safety is more than just physical safety, which is what we typically talk about, but it's also mental, emotional well-being of our employees and our customers. Respect, something that I talk about a lot, is treating each other with courtesy and respect. If we can treat each other well, then that makes everything else easier, is the way we do that. And integrity seems like it should go without saying, but we need to say it to place a high standard on ethics, personal responsibility, because we need to continue with or rebuild the trust of our employees and the community that we work through. We're doing all that to improve lives of the people of Northeast Florida and to build community. That's very high level. There's lots of details that fall within that we'll have to implement and work on. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I want to tell you, I grew up in a utility family. So this has been literally my whole life. My father and my grandfather ran water systems in North Carolina. I spent a lot of Saturdays at the water and wastewater plants. I was way, way older than I should have been before I realized that everybody didn't do that. Learned how to ride my bike at a water plant in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I went to school to be a civil engineer, and I spent, as Laurie said, 25-ish years in this business. And I've been involved with water and sewer and electric and natural gas and streets and sanitation and a lot of public works kind of activities. But I'm excited to be here, to be a part of this team, because while I guess we just call it the craziness of the last couple of years have gone on, that was just a handful of folks doing some of whatever they did. But by and large, we have 2,000 employees that kept on doing what they needed to do every single day. And in just a very interesting way, the community as a whole came out in support of this public utility. So I'm excited to be here, but there's a lot of work to do because of that, the series of events that happened between 2016, 2018. There's a leadership team that left and retired and moved on. Then another leadership team came in, and then they left or moved on. And then we had an interim period of time with a bunch of folks. And so 6 months ago, I got here. 6 months ago, last week, I got here. We had 13 direct reports on the leadership team. And I'm excited about the structure that we've put together for that. And Sheila is the chief customer officer. Jody's chief administrative officer. We've hired a chief HR officer and a chief strategy officer. And we've got 2 or 3 other of that leadership team level that in the next couple of months we'll be able to move forward with naming those. Because we are going to be focused on serving the community. Each of the people that we're talking to are committed to that. They are committed to serving the people of Northeast Florida to make things better. This leadership team is also working to support and build a team in some areas that we might not have been as much involved in the past. So in economic development, for example, we are and have been supportive and reactive to economic development. I think that one of the main things that we do 3 things. We protect public health, public safety, and support economic development within a community. And so we're going to put together a team that's going to help support the groups that are looking at economic development. We're going to continue to strengthen our relationship with our customers. Once we have that team in place, what I talk about more than anything else internally is the little things that we need to work on. The idea that each day we have customer interactions with all kinds of folks within our organization. And we have to make it easier for our customers to do business because ends up that we are serving your businesses and your homes, but we're also serving everybody. the most well-to-do to the least. We have an awful lot of people in our community that have trouble paying their bills. JA's bill might be the second or third highest bill that they pay. And if you get behind on your bill, it is hard to get back out of that. And so every dollar that we spend is a dollar that someone has given us to pay for the services. And we have to keep that in mind and keep our bills reasonable, affordable, and as low as possible. We're committed to providing reliable, affordable utility services, and we're committed to doing what is best for the people of Northeast Florida. We changed the way we work. You all changed the way you meet. COVID over the last 15 months or 16 months has changed a lot. We're building a new building downtown, and we're transitioning back to the office, but we're doing this in a hybrid approach that will allow our employees to work from wherever they are best. For those people who can do work from home, they can continue to work from home, and we're working through that. But we're committed to supporting downtown, not just with the building, but with other areas. Jacksonville is a growing community. I'm surprised that somebody from real estate even has time to come to lunch with the way things are happening right now in the development and real estate area. We have to stay up with the growth. Lori is going to be able to correct me on all these numbers, but just a capital spend, this number changes every time I hear it. $1.5 billion in water and sewer over the next 5 years, which is really $1.6 billion, except it might be $1.7 billion because some of our projects are going up and some of our costs are going up. And that doesn't include some of the big projects like septic tanks and other things that we need to have in there. It doesn't include the surface water discharge bill that passed that we have to eliminate discharge to the river by 2032. So that number is something like 1.5, 1.7, 2 billion. And just threw around $500 million in the last 3 minutes. That's just water and sewer. We have electric that is roughly $1 billion over that same period of time. So we're talking about a $2.5 to $3 billion level of effort that is not something we've done before. It's going to take a lot of work and effort to get the right people in the right place and the right seats to be able to accomplish that. Good news is that's going to turn into jobs. We don't often frame it up quite this way, but if we're spending $2 or $3 billion, which is more than what we've spent in the past 5 years or any other 5 years in the past, that is a lot of jobs that come in, and it supports a lot of other jobs. We get some pushback sometimes on whether we're good for the environment or not good for the environment, but we're committed to environmental stewardship, and we have been for years. The wastewater system is cleaning up the water that is being used. We have reused water. We're reducing the air, we're making the air better. We're not reducing the air. That's what we used to do. We used to reduce the air. Now we're better. I told you I was nervous with this whole in-person thing. We are increasing water conservation because there's a limited supply of water, and we need to be prepared for the growth that's coming anyway, and people will need the water. Long-term plan for electric. We're about to kick off an integrated resource plan to define what our electric generation system needs to look like. I suspect that plan, we're looking out 20 years, I suspect that plan will have more renewable and less carbon footprint than we have now, which is always an interesting thing to say, because somebody in the room probably was like, yes, we need more renewable, and somebody else was like, that's too expensive. We serve everybody, and whatever view you have, somebody else has the exact opposite view. We've got to be able to listen to everybody and balance that. I don't know, I've been here for 6 months. I've never lived in Florida before. We crossed over hurricane season last week, June 1st. I asked the people at office if that meant, was I supposed to stand outside like my first day of school type picture, or what we do. I don't know what to do to celebrate the beginning of hurricane season. I can tell you what we did at JEA is about 2 or 3 weeks before the start of hurricane season, we had a tabletop exercise to be sure that we were as prepared as we can be to expect the unexpected and be prepared to respond. We've been generally pretty good at that. You might debate that depending on where you happen to live in the past couple of storms. But we need to be better and be able to respond more quickly to hurricanes. We also have started an initiative that we're calling Resiliency Beyond Hurricanes, because typically we've spent a lot of time focused on hurricanes as our worst case scenario. And then in January, Houston hit 7 degrees. And I looked across and I thought, wait, Jacksonville and Houston, same. And turns out we hit 7 or 8 degrees in 1985. Cold weather can come, and we need to be prepared for that. And then the Colonial Pipeline happened, and so cyber attacks and ransomware can come, and we need to be prepared for that. And there's a river, there's sea level, there's floods, the list goes on. And so we need to be sure that we are even better than we've been in the past. We've got lots of plans in place, and we want to be sure that we take that into account and make sure that we're covering what we need to. And then the little things, and another technical term, stuff, we just need to do our normal stuff well. We are foundational to the community. We serve everybody. We have to keep on providing clean water, treat the wastewater, reliable electric service, because everyone depends on that. We used to have, the person who taught me the most about our electric system tells a story of going into an electric co-op years and years ago, where tacked up on the wall of this supervisor's office is a postcard that says, hey, next time y'all are out my way, can you turn the electricity back on? It went out in the storm a couple of days ago. Nobody's that patient anymore. Nobody's waiting a couple of days. Even in a hurricane, people expect it to come on much more quickly. And so we've got to be prepared for that and be ready. That means that we have to focus on, I should have asked where you live too, because we have to focus on tree trimming. That sometimes gets a little tense until the storm comes. And that's why we do it, is to keep our reliability up, to do vegetation management, pay attention to what's attached to our poles. We've got to read our meters. We've got to deal with our customers that call in and need help. And we need to plan for the future. So we're going to keep on doing all those things. While we do it, we've got to take into account the cost, because some of this is not really that hard. If we just raise rates, if we just, all the money we need, then we could do a bunch of stuff, but we have to balance that. We can't just go out and ignore the cost. We've got to pay attention to the cost, because that's ultimately what you all have to pay. We have to remain competitive with other utilities, but we have to do this for the long haul. We're not in this for the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. We're in this for the long haul. So we're going to do all that, and that doesn't even touch on the other important things that are happening, like the status of Plant Vogtle septic tanks, undergrounding of electric, coal, the smart grid, electric vehicles, broadband, fiber, district energy cooling system. There's all these other things that are out there that we're going to have to keep on working on. We do all of that keeping our customers in mind, because, as I said, we're foundational to the community. And when we do our jobs well, everyone else can do their jobs well. That's why I'm here, is because I love the idea of being able to help everyone be better, to improve lives of the people of Northeast Florida. So with that, I will, without warning, I'll open up the floor and let there be any questions. It's always fun to see how fast people raise their hands. Yes, sir.
So it has definitely become more than a movement in this country to eliminate natural gas as your power source. And I think California has actually moved forward on that. And legislation, or it's pending over there now, to eliminate it all the way down to the consumer level. You can't use natural gas to power your stove and your hot water heater anymore. Just want to know your thoughts about that.
I think there's got to be a balanced approach to everything we do. In 1970 something, we have a chart it's one of my favorite charts. It's a donut chart that shows that in 1977 or 78, JEA used fuel oil for like 98%, basically all of them. And we have made changes over the last 40 something years, but we still use coal, we still use natural gas. We have increasing amount of solar that's coming on, and we have Plant Vogtle will be an increasing amount that will allow us to have carbon-free generation from Vogtle. And we're starting our integrated resource plan. The integrated resource plan will define what we need to look at over the next 20 years for generation. I'd be surprised if we pulled out of natural gas very quickly, because we have the north side generating plant that is still using coal. So we have levels, and there may be ways to clean up and clean the air even more with what is natural gas. But it is a transition until we get battery storage to effectively work. Then the base load generation is going to have to be something. So, yes, sir.
Would you consider it to be reasonable for a developer to get an approved set of plans from the JEA and be able to build that infrastructure without the JEA changing the plans after they built it all?
I don't know if that sounded like a trick question or not. I think it is completely reasonable that we need to be easier to do business with. And I imagine that we have times where we have not been easy to do business with, and we're working hard to do that. So it's absolutely reasonable for us to be better tomorrow than we are today. And
a few minutes after.
Yes. Well, it depends on what the next questions are. Yes, ma'am.
You made some comment about the increase in solar energy earlier, and I'm just curious because around my neighborhood, I've noticed that there have been more solar panels installed in residential homes. My parents had some put in a couple of years ago. What sort of increase, or do you know the numbers, maybe as far as residential goes? I'm just curious how that's been.
I don't know the specific increase on residential. I do know that was part of the argument about how we weren't going to be able to be in business. And I think it's a piece that we need to be sure that we embrace appropriately and support appropriately, and provide options for people that can have that, and provide alternatives for people who can't put it on their house but want to support the environment. So I don't know exactly what the growth is. We have program in place with the way that our billing policy that allows people to do that if they want to. So, yes, sir.
I know we present the rating agencies 2 or 3 times a year. Affected as a result of all the issues that we've had in the last couple of years that we've put down.
Yes, I've presented since I've been here to the rating agencies once. The rating agencies are the ones that help decide what our credit is. It's basically like your credit report, simplified, but that's and so over the last year or so, one of them downgraded us, and I don't remember which one, and we're stable or improving at this point. And there's outside impacts that are also impact what we are doing, but we have exceptionally low borrowing rates right now and are not negatively impacted at all.
Just one more follow-up if I can. And the contribution in lieu of taxes, where are we now?
I don't know the city budget. $120 million plus or minus is what we provide to the city. So I don't know what their budget is. And that's $120 million in that line. There's other things that we also work with them on. So something greater than that is what we provide. Yes, sir.
I live in St. Nicholas, and we just went through, I guess, a project where the sewer lines were old and they were relining them. They moved stuff on top. And can you just explain a little bit what was going on with that? If there's other areas that are going through the same.
I don't know exactly. It was a capital project, so is that, I assume, I'm going to guess, and I'll describe what it could have been, is that all of our infrastructure will get old at some point and needs to be replaced. And one of the ways we can do that is slip lining, where you can run a pipe inside of another pipe, and then it's renewed and refreshed. That sounds like something else. So that's probably what it was. What was on the top of the line was pump station, was pumping around the manhole to manhole, or replacing the force main. They would put it on top of the line is what that, but I don't know exactly. That would be my guess. We can find out. Yes, ma'am.
Any plans for underground utilities?
Yes.
Don't be alive.
So we have, since about 1968, all new subdivisions have been underground. So the largest percentage of our electric system is already underground. And we have programs in place that if neighborhood subdivisions groups want to come together, then we will do an overhead to underground conversion once 70% of the community agrees to that. And there's a cost sharing in that. So anytime you get 70% of the people in your neighborhood to agree to it and help pay for it, then we will run that project. And we've got a team of people that Project Outreach is called, that actually can go out and explain that to neighborhood groups and talk about it. So, yes. Yes, sir.
I have to follow up on that question, and I owe you the courtesy of a full disclosure. I'm on Senior Tax and Goes Underground Project Committee.
Yep.
And my question is, with Greg and other city council people's help, we got the legislative way approved that you just referred to, that the neighborhoods who can afford it
yes,
have a method of achieving underground in their neighborhood. And I have to compliment the JEA's staff that's trying to work on that. I encourage anybody that thinks about that, go do a tour with their staff and start seeing their side of the story. It's pretty complex, and there's some low-hanging fruit and not low-hanging fruit. Our request, and I would love you to address it as specifically as you think you can, faced with the board that is new, for the neighborhoods that can't afford it, which to a great degree is underprivileged, economically struggling communities, especially in North Jacksonville. Couldn't we have, we're begging y'all to plan a 30-year, make it a 40-year commitment, and do 1%, 2%, 3% per year that's out of a budget. We give them a financial package to, I'm not sure that it's ever gotten to your level. Probably it has.
it has.
That those of us who can't afford to have our neighborhoods or are blessed to live in neighborhoods that are already done ought to be not creating a bigger disparity. And the families that, when we have our hurricanes, and it doesn't just take hurricanes, we've got an enormous tree canopy here.
Yep.
Unfortunately, a lot of it is laurel oaks. And that does not take the hurricane, it just takes rain. It takes 30 to 40 years, and there go the power lines. Is there any hope that y'all would commit to some point starting a 1%, 2%, or 3% a year effort underground, especially in neighborhoods that can't afford the legislative process?
Do you remember the financial number?
Sir?
Do you remember the number, the cost?
Yes, so there's 3,000 miles that need to be done, and they're done that. Y'all's price that we've always been given is $1.5 million a mile. Florida Power and Light, according to their public testimony, is doing it for $1 million a mile. And their argument is the improved technology that came with the shale drilling has brought the cost down. but you can't do it on a small neighborhood project without the $1.5 million amount of 100. So it would be, it's either a $3 billion problem or a $2 billion problem.
Yeah, it's
And what we were hoping for was $100 million a year just to start it.
Yeah, that's very hard. So this is sometimes, if someone from Florida Power and Light were standing here, they would disagree with this. But it's a little bit easier because they recover their rates based on how much capital they spend. So if I got the rates and my job was to take care of the stockholders, then I'd spend $100 million a year, yes. $100 million a year comes out of the pockets of everybody. And as I said earlier, maybe not in this room, but somewhere I would go to a room and the same idea of spending $100 million, people would tell me absolutely be as aggressively against it as you are for it. So we have to balance that, first of all. Second of all, I appreciate the problem and the issue, but we also have a $2.5 billion, $3 billion septic tank issue that affects the environment too. And trying to figure out how to balance all of those things is going to be tricky. So yes, we should figure out both of those things. And no, I don't know what the answer is right now. We're not ready to commit $100 million a year for 20 or 25 or 30 years. That's a really, really big number. And then there's philosophical arguments about who ought to be paying for what and how that works, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Your point is valid. How are we taking care of the people that can least afford it? And that covers both the monthly bill that we're charging and how do we respond to them in outages that it gets them affected. So we need to keep on digging through it. I have met with the Scenic Jacks a couple of times about that and about some riverfront downtown things. And we spend a lot of time talking about both underground and septic tanks. Those are two like big, hard to solve problems that are floating out there right now.
Can you ask the folks on Zoom if they have any questions? Just so they probably can't hear me saying that.
Does anybody is there any question on from Zoom?
I guess not.
Doesn't look like it.
Jay just muted himself. So.
Are there other questions? Yes. Yes, sir.
So, Jay, you know, I work with Southjax-USA and economic development part of the chamber. Part of what we do includes working with your team and bring companies to this community, and you've started to see some pretty major announcements. So the first thing I would say is your team is phenomenal, incredibly responsive, and we couldn't do it without you, and thank you for your support. The second thing is really more of I'm interested, in talking to you, you've got a visionary component to the way you think, and we started talking about water. I wonder if you're looking out, what are the growth areas for JEA? What do you see as being the opportunities to maybe move slightly beyond sort of the traditional, water, electrical, sewer model to generate some additional revenue? Can you give me some thoughts?
Yeah. So new business opportunities. First of all, for me and for JEA, it's not going to be driven by additional revenues. It's going to need to be serving the customers and serving the community. So things that make sense for us to be involved in, then yeah, we should be able to get involved in that. Some of that would be increasing things that we're already doing. So we have an electrification program, which I hate the name because it sounds self-serving to ask you to use more electricity, but it's really using electricity more efficiently in businesses, lighting programs and ways to make things better for commercial industrial customers, solar at residential, at homes, at commercial projects. Should we be in the broadband business serving fiber optics to our customers more than we are now? those are the types of questions that we're starting to study and look at. We have a strategic planning retreat in July, which topics like, and I don't mean to be flippant about any of these issues. They're real issues. This is real issues. How we're going to be underground, how we're going to deal with septic tanks, how we're going to deal with new revenue streams and new projects. All that's on the table for us to start discussing at the strategic retreat. But so is, what should we do with the gas, and how do we deal with Plant Vogel, and what is the impact going to be on our bonds and our ratings? And so we have to juggle all of those things. But there's lots of opportunities that if it's the right thing for us to do and we support it, then yes, we would absolutely do that. Yes, sir.
It seems to me that the generation of electricity and the transference of it across great distances is a horribly inefficient process. And it also has some vulnerabilities. So everything from fuel acquisition to transportation to the voltage drop and everything that happens. Yeah. Do you ever foresee a future where we can get out of this big centralized production of electricity and go to more small based areas of generation? I mean, we put nuclear carriers out for months on end. We do solar on an individual home, but maybe we can get groups of 6 or 8 homes with small generation packages. We don't have to worry about tree canopy as much. We don't have to worry about grid vulnerabilities. Do you think that we'll ever get 100 years down the road into something like that?
That's 100 years. I feel safe answering that one, really positive, yeah. It is a balance of cost and benefit. It's the same thing with everything we've talked about. Distributed energy resources is part of a solution for resiliency, for reliability, and it can be in small areas or in smaller grid areas that we can do, and I think we'll see more of that. It's one of the possibilities of new businesses that we could be involved in. Imagine a campus type facility, a college, a hospital, a school that has several buildings that we had a generator that was there to run for emergencies, but also available for everyday use, feeding the system. System's not built that way. The system right now is you put big generators, you put transmission lines, and then you run your distribution lines to the businesses or homes. And if you start putting generators inside of those, then it's going the other way. It causes a little bit of technical problems. The other answer might be around electric vehicles and how the batteries that are in electric vehicles we can use at different times of day. So I think we're headed in that direction, and there's more and more of it. It's expensive. Everything we do is, I hate that that's the answer every time, but everything we do is expensive. We're talking about the number $3.5 billion in the next 5 years. And I gave you things that didn't count. I didn't count the 500 million for the next 5 years that we just added for the overhead underground, or a fiber optic system that might be several hundred. There's lots and lots of very expensive things that we've got to figure out. But yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you foresee sea level rising sometime in the foreseeable future, 50 years, causing huge impacts to the utilities?
50. I'm 53. 50. Yep. Yep, I can answer that one too. I think it already is impacting us. I think and we've got a resiliency study that we've completed on our water and wastewater systems, the low-lying areas of water and wastewater pump stations, and we're doing things to improve the reliability of those, and we've got to be prepared for all of that. That's that resiliency beyond hurricanes is we've got to be prepared for things that we can debate yes or no what causes, but sea level rise or just flooding in general. It doesn't matter to me where it's coming from if it's flooding, and then all that cold weather and all the other things. Yes, sir.
This morning, my phone, it's one of those little gotcha type things that get your attention. And a company I'd never heard of before, Vistra, was mentioned. they own 36 gas-powered generating stations, apparently. And they've been expanding, and they said no more. We're now going to spend $1 billion on, I guess, solar and battery storage. And apparently, the whole idea of batteries is the next nimble thing to leap into, thanks to Elon Musk and a whole lot of other people. So what is the JEA actually doing today about looking at battery storage?
We have a small battery project right now. We are involved in other utility organizations and groups and learn from others on how that goes and pay attention to that. And then we will put that in the integrated resource plan over the next year to help decide what would trigger the time to put in battery storage and how to do that. The answer is still price. It's a balance of debt and rates, operations and capital, balancing the environmental needs and the cost. And all of those there's a lot of different moving parts that we have to keep level. And sometimes they get, out of tune one way or the other, and we have to refix it. So right now, batteries for JEA are not cost effective. But you didn't give me a year. 75 years, they might be. Short term, they're not cost effective.
You nor I could work.
That's right. Well, that's the way I'm doing this. I appreciate the years you guys. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here. I
Thank you. We're going to make an honorary contribution to Rotary International Polio Plus. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. A lot of paperwork here. All right, your weekly reminder to RSVP for every event, every meeting. Please don't forget, we need to know if you're going to be there or not. And I also wanted to mention that Larry Cavallero's wife, Rose, she had a fall. She's resting at home now, but if you want to call or send a card, I'm sure they would appreciate that. And I also do want to just say real quick that we've gotten some very nice thank you notes from Mayor Curry and from State Attorney Nelson and from the Jacksonville Zoo. And so if you guys ever want to read through those, you certainly can, but everyone is acknowledging being a part of our meetings, which is nice as well. And next week, our speaker will be Jim Webb with Manifest Distilling. So there you go, right? And some hot tips from you, Barry, I'm sure. And as we end our meeting, please join me in the Rotary motto: service above self, one profits most who serves best. See you next week.